Hello, welcome back. Today I'm going to be watching and reacting to, especially because I've drank this water here before in the US. I don't know if I have in Britain, but it's why you can't buy Dasani water in Britain. So since I've had it before, I see it everywhere around here. I'm kind of worried. Why not? What's the difference? We'll find out in here, and let me know. Why is this so low? There we go, much better. And I want to know if this is a common kind of theme, a common knowledge over there in Britain. Just don't get this kind of water. I don't know why yet, but we are about to find out. So let's jump in.
This is a bottle of Dasani, Coca-Cola's brand of bottled water. It is basically Coke without the syrup. Like most American bottled water, it is tap water that's been purified and then had tiny amounts of minerals deliberately added back into it. Except not quite. This is a British Dasani bottle from 2004, which is the first and last time that you could ever buy Dasani water in the UK.
Wow.
And the story of why it failed here is one of the greatest marketing disaster stories in history. But it wasn't until I started searching through newspapers and TV shows from 2004, that I found that the tale is a little more complicated than I thought. A little more complicated than a lot of the world thought. And it starts years earlier. Through most of the 1980s, bottled water was something expensive that got ordered at fancy restaurants, and it was only by the early 90s that it had started to become a thing that everyday people might want to buy. On Christmas Day, 1992, British sitcom Only Fools and Horses made fun of that trend by having its main character, lovable rogue Del Boy, sell tap water from South London as Peckham Spring bottled water. It's a slow and old-fashioned comedy by today's standards, and the episode is really weirdly paced. You're two-thirds of the way through before anyone actually starts bottling water. But because it was the Christmas Day episode in 1992, back when most British households only had 4 channels of television, that show was watched by more than 20 million people, more than a third of the entire British population. And the final joke of that episode is that the water is contaminated by some chemical barrels that Del Boy dumped in a local pond in the first act. It is, to be fair, a brilliant closing gag, and it's one that stuck in the British psyche. The BBC reran the episode another 5 times in the years after. It'll have been on cable and satellite channels many more times than that. I would guess that by 2004, when Dasani launched, about half of the country, maybe more, could understand Peckham Spring as a reference, or at least remembered that time Del Boy tried to bottle tap water.
It's horrible.
Now, under UK law, mineral water is a protected term. Mineral water must come from a certified underground spring. It must not be chemically treated in any way, and it's generally under heavy regulation. And back in 2004, underground spring.
Just went back real quick. Yeah, this is what I like about probably anywhere, most places outside of the US, especially, Britain and I'm sure Europe. They're much more stringent, strict for good reason with what companies can put in what you consume, what you drink, what you eat. And for example, like cacao or chocolate here in the US, I have one video that I'm going to react to. It's the differences in chocolate. I think 2 different, someone from Britain and someone from America are trying them and give facts to them. And it's just the British chocolate is way better, and in Europe in general, in the UK, because they have more, the government requires it to be a certain percentage, way higher than here in the US of cacao. One of them's processed, I don't remember which one, I think it's cocoa though, that you need to have to technically be considered chocolate. And here in the US, it's like, I don't know, a couple percent, and everything else is all fake and horrible and make us obese and have all sorts of weird cancers here, whereas over there it seems more protected, and I like that much more. But just wanted to stop for that. It looks like this is going the same direction as that, but probably way worse.
It must not be chemically treated in any way, and it's generally under heavy regulation. And back in 2004, the perception was that bottled water meant mineral water. Why else would you buy it? It's something you can't get at home. Over in America, though, the home of Coca-Cola, the perception of bottled water was that it was just that. It's water in a bottle. You were paying for the convenience and the taste, and it didn't really matter whether that came from the ground or from a water purification factory.
Yeah.
To be fair, there are large parts of America where the tap water does not taste or smell good, and their federal standards aren't great, particularly compared to Europe. And anyone who has ever taken a vacation to Disney World, for example, will know that the tap water around Orlando can smell a little sulphury. But in the UK, the perception was different. You were buying mineral water because it was natural. It had been filtered through rocks for eons. It was classier and fancier and perhaps healthier than what came out of your tap. That's rubbish, of course. We have some of the safest tap water in the world, and did back then too, but
That's
advertising
great.
is powerful. And the idea was that bottled water was filtered and pure straight from the earth. It was somehow better. Coca-Cola were trying to introduce an American-style filtered tap water to a British mineral water market. Now, they were not lying about their water. Their marketing didn't use the phrase tap water. They preferred purified water, but they weren't lying. It says on the back of the bottle, their process precisely delivers pure, still water. The public might have assumed it was mineral water, but Coca-Cola never said that. In fact, what they had done is spend a long time with focus groups, taste testing and refining the mineral balance and the flavour of the water, making a version of Dasani that was ideal for the British palate. Dasani launched with the first stage of what was going to be a £7 million advertising campaign on February 10th, 2004, and it went okay. For weeks, the British public either didn't notice or didn't care that it was tap water, the same way Americans don't seem to care. There were occasional rough patches for the launch, like shopkeepers in Buxton, a town famous for its mineral water, complaining about being forced by their contracts with Coca-Cola to replace bottles of the local water in coolers with Dasani. Or the regulators launching an investigation into whether Coca-Cola should be using the word pure on the label. But on the whole,
Yeah.
it went okay. A lot of articles written more recently claim that Coca-Cola's first blunder was copying an American Dasani slogan, "Can't live without Spunk," which has a very different meaning in the UK. But I don't think that's true. The only
What's the? I don't know what that means. Spunk in the UK. I have no idea. Let me know what that means. Maybe keep it child friendly. I have no idea what it means. Spunk.
actual evidence I could find of that slogan is a screenshot on one tech news website that liked innuendo. Looks like a web designer reused some American ad images in one part of a Flash-based website that almost no one saw. No other article from the time, that I can find anyway, mentions that slogan at all. You know, the advertising was put together by Coca-Cola's UK division. They're not stupid. In fact, the advertising team was probably breathing a sigh of relief. All things considered, the launch had been successful.
Okay. So far, so
And
good.
then it all went wrong. Very, very quickly. Exactly 3 weeks after launch, March the 2nd, most of the major British newspapers simultaneously put out big stories announcing that Dasani was bottled tap water. Most of them mentioned that episode of Only Fools and Horses, and all of them made a lot of noise, implying that it was a rip-off.
So this kind of reminds me of, water here in the US. It's kind of amusing. I mean, my family has a kick out of it. You look at this, it's much more relaxed on what advertisers, what companies can say. I feel like they could push it a lot more and kind of trick the public, and it's just fine. It's just like a thing, whatever. It's not, overly protected or protected whatsoever like it is in Britain, which I wish it was more. But you'll see, I don't know if it's like Fiji water or some other, purified water. They make it sound all great, mineral water. It's just this fancy, nice, beautiful thing. There's palm trees on it, and then you'll see where it's actually bottled. You look on the back, which thankfully they have to say that. You look on the back and it says, bottled in LA, bottled in Los Angeles. And it's just that's where they get it from. They kind of, we probably import the water anyways from a different state because we're always in droughts here. We're currently in one right now. We've had like no rain this year. And yeah, they just bottle it in Los Angeles or out in the desert somewhere. It's just kind of amusing to see where they actually get that water, where they pump the water from. And it's just reminding me of this so much. It's common here.
Although perhaps they didn't put it in quite so few words. And back when a lot of people actually read physical newspapers, front page news saying that your product is a rip-off does make a big difference to sales.
Yeah.
But why was it suddenly news everywhere at the same time after 3 silent weeks? The missing piece of the puzzle is one journalist called Graham Hiscott, who worked for the Press Association. And as he tells it, as part of a brilliant half-hour documentary made later that year, he happened to be flipping through an issue of The Grocer, an industry magazine, at work one day. And, that's an event that the documentary asked him to recreate for some reason. Now, The Grocer is an ideal source for journalists looking for the next story about a product recall or a weird marketing strategy, and that issue of the magazine had a feature on bottled water. And there was just one line in one article describing Dasani as a mineral-enhanced treated tap water, which when written so clearly seemed odd. So Graham called Coca-Cola and they said, yes, Dasani is treated tap water from the main supply at their bottling plant right there in Sidcup, South London, 10 miles from Peckham, where the episode of Only Fools and Horses was set. A few hours after that phone call, there was an article on the Press Association Newswire about where Dasani came from. Articles on the Newswire don't usually go straight to the public, they go to other journalists first who can use them or adapt them. And the editors at most of the newspapers correctly decided that yes, this was something their readers would be interested in.
Absolutely.
6 months earlier, when Coca-Cola was setting out preparations for their Dasani launch, the Grocer had run a small article about it. And there's a line in there that's prophetic. One senior buyer warned that some consumers may be put off by the water's lack of provenance. And now, Coke bottles tap water for 3,000% markup was on the front pages. But Coca-Cola and Dasani soldiered on. That didn't kill the brand. They put more marketing budget behind it. They gave away free bottles in supermarkets. Another article in the Grocer from back then quotes Coca-Cola's UK marketing director. There cannot be many people who do not know about Dasani now. I cannot imagine how much we would have had to spend to get that level of awareness. There is a theory that there's no such thing as bad publicity, after all. The final nail in the coffin was the contamination. They'd had a bad batch of calcium chloride delivered right here. It's one of the chemicals they use in the purification process, and tests revealed that their water contained above the legal limits of bromate, a cancer-causing chemical. There wasn't anywhere near enough in the water to do harm, but there was enough that it was outside the legal limits. So within 24 hours, every unsold bottle was recalled back here, and the shelves were empty. Just like Del Boy, not only had Coca-Cola sold tap water in a bottle, but they sold contaminated tap water in a bottle. Dasani never returned to shops. Never launched in France or Germany like they were planning. And to this day, if you type Dasani into Google UK, you get results about the disaster. News reports from 2004 on the first page. Coca-Cola launched other water brands, of course, but as far as I can tell, they all look to be spring waters or mineral waters. They're not hooking up a purifier to the tap. Not over here. There are other folks selling purified tap water, of course, but that's usually the cheap option on the shelf. Not that it matters. It's all just water. And I reckon Coca-Cola could absolutely have made this work. Maybe they still could. There is a world in which one journalist didn't use the words tap water, or another journalist didn't happen to look at one particular article and where the launch went just fine.
Absolutely.
And Britain got used to the fact that drinking bottled, purified tap water could be normal. After all, if it had been a popular brand, no one would want to admit their purchases might be questionable. It's a lot easier to just say, yeah, that's fine, of course, I know it's tap water, than go, hang on, I've been paying how much for what? And worry that you might have been ripped off. I don't think the Dasani disaster was inevitable, but it happened. And all that's left, 16 years later, is a few bottles like this.
Wow. You know, what's truly impressive about that video is that he did that in one take, I think. That guy did it in one take. You know, he mentioned right here, there's no such thing as bad publicity, kind of a theory. In a lot of ways, I think that's true. In this way, it was a disaster. That's not good at all. And it kind of crushed, like he said, as a domino effect to whenever launched in France and Germany and just across Europe. This was probably the foothold that they were looking for into entering the UK market and then to eventually expanding more into Europe, I would only imagine was their strategy here. But yeah, most of the time I think that is true of there's no such thing as bad publicity. This is extra bad, especially when it's, you know, coming to what you're consuming. There's a lot of instances where that is true though, even if you get hammered like bad publicity, and it's a good thing because it spreads so massively. And for whatever reason, people are reminded of that and buy the product or buy the song, buy the whatever it is, clothes, even with bad publicity. So it's just kind of interesting that he said that. He did a good job at filming the video, and he was right there. It was kind of I thought it was just gonna be a long video of him walking down the sidewalk, but it just so happens that is the building right there. And I wonder who it's owned by now. And it's probably a great thing, honestly, maybe I'm wrong, that bottled water, I don't know if it's popular now for whatever, like mineral water, But like you said, it's a 300% markup, maybe more nowadays. It's just, to me, very unnecessary. Here in the US, we have our hydro flasks, our flasks of just water that we fill. People have purifiers at their own home for the tap water. I think bottled water is kind of, maybe not on the way out, but it's a lot less, common here. It was all the rage back in the day. But let me know what you think. Let me know if you've ever had Dasani water back in the day before it was discontinued, or what you know about this. Overly, I'm not surprised coming from, the US, how we just watched a video of, I just reacted to a video of UK McDonald's compared to US McDonald's. Yeah, they go through the food and the taste, but they also go through the ingredients. And the fries, for example, in the UK, and I'm sure Europe as well, there's something like 4 ingredients to it. And in the US, there's a whole list. There's a laundry list of items that go into this, all sorts of weird syrups and kind of chemical. It's bad. It's not good at all. So I think that's just our normal over here. I would like to hear from you and what you have to add to this. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining me for this video. And until next time, we'll find more of these types of videos. Have a good day.